Now call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting on April 4th, 2022. Time is 7 p.m. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Orr? Here. Member Matheny?
Here.
Member Revolt? Here. Member Stroya?
Here.
Member Waring?
Here.
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member McLeister?
Here.
7 present.
Community and Economic Development. Fair. Thank you very much.
A year or so ago, we adopted our DORA legislation, and at the time of its adoption and initial implementation, we discussed bringing it back after a year to evaluate our progress. The law requires a 5-year look back, but we thought at the time, and suspect even today, that we thought it would be a good idea to take a peek. So, as you'll notice, it was Ordinance 55, 2020. You have on the screens the sort of DORA basics, as well as the DORA district is defined by our ordinance. You may recall that we shrank it a little bit. And I thought tonight what we would do is, I'm going to move to the next slide, kind of give you the sort of the basic one-page recap, cheat sheet. We've got 4 participating holders, 2 permanent, 2 temporary. We've used it for a number of community events, a small number, Market 720, the Main Street Festival, and the Winter Fest. I think what's exciting is that our records indicate that we have sold 10,450 cups. That equates to a conservative estimate of over $52,000 in additional commercial activity for those 4 businesses or activities. And that's assuming that the cost of the beverage was $4. The charge was $4, which is low.
Yeah.
So we think that $52,000 is well above that.
Does that include the dollar for each cup?
No. Yeah.
No, not if
Well, here's what we've done. Yes, it does. We
Okay.
sold, let me lay this out for you. We sold the cups to the permit holders for 64 cents.
Oh,
All right. The
basil.
vendor sold the cup for $1
Right.
plus the cost of the beverage. So it's conceivable that the vendor made 36 cents on the cup plus somewhere between $4 and $6 per beverage.
10,000 cups, what we sold to the vendors or what the vendors sold
That's
in
what
product?
we sold.
Okay, so they could be holding some.
They
cups.
could be holding some
Okay.
back. But we sold 10,000 cups
At 64 cents.
at 64 cents.
Okay.
One of the issues that came up was what kind of problems could we anticipate? Ben queried the police department, and we had 0 calls for service. 0.
I know people were worried about that.
We were worried about it.
Well, a few.
But the point is that we've had 0. Now, I will concede that we had 1 person who was intoxicated, but evidence strongly suggested that he arrived intoxicated and in a celebratory mood.
So turn to wrestling.
I don't know. You are not to wear wrestling tights again. At any rate,
That's okay.
yeah, it is. I think the point is that the DORA appears to be working as intended. We'll get into our 2nd season. We'll take a look at it at the season's end again, a year from now, to see where we are. And I think, as we indicated earlier, not only does the DORA support nonprofits, but it also supports our restaurants. And one of those restaurants in particular that I checked with, one of those vendors, said that he'd secured over a month's rent on one day at the Main
Wow.
Street Festival. And that's really huge as our local businesses work to survive. And we know that particularly during COVID, restaurants were particularly vulnerable to declining income. So I think we got something out of it. All of you should have in your packets, or Ben has probably mailed to you, a copy of the City Scene magazine
Yeah.
for Columbus
That was a great
that
article.
details the status of the DORAs in Franklin County. And again, I think what we're doing is consistent with what they're doing. They're a little farther ahead down there. They've achieved more success. But again, it underscores how the DORA can help our community activities in the city. On a more personal note, I would also say that it underscores the administration's plan to improve Bitzer. I still think that's something that we want to look at. It's a great DORA venue for activities, whether it's Friday night jazz, Friday night food trucks, whatever that looks like. And if you look at the City Scene magazine story,
Yeah.
you'll see that communities are doing that kind of stuff. Well, I think we can too. So,
I think what I liked about that too, it was almost like if you didn't do it down there, you were just way out of the loop.
Yep.
Almost like what was wrong with your community. And knowing that we have other communities around us that are doing it, like I was really proud kind of all of Stark. And glad to know that we were a part of it.
yeah, and I think the thing that impressed me about the article, Stephanie, is that you can build certain kinds of events with your DORA.
Yeah.
It serves as an additional attraction. If you've got food, some music, you've got the DORA, you'll draw a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's art, whether it's antique, or just, Market 720.
Yeah.
And I think to your point of selling 10,000 cups and having 0 calls for service, you're attracting people, but you're not attracting the people that are going to do ill. So,
Well, and I think the other point is this, is the administration at the time we did this indicated that it was going to commit the law enforcement resources to figuratively and literally police the event.
Yeah.
And it has. We had no incidents with citizens. We haven't had litter issues. The administration has done a terrific job rolling this out in the last year. So
Great.
we're onward ever. I've exhausted my couple minutes. I want to thank Ben for helping grab some of the stuff.
One
update.
quick question.
Yes.
Who are the 2 permanent holders and who are the 2 temporary, do you know?
The 2 permanents are Hollingbird and Pabs.
Okay.
And then we've got the Chamber.
The chamber and then Market 720,
Market
just hold
720.
F permits that participated in the DORA.
So is there any type of goal on how many permanents or temporaries we would like to get?
Well, John, that's a great question, and let me just share this thought with you. What I'd like to see is a couple of restaurants go into the bottom of the Hoover facility, convert the front lawn of Hoover to an outdoor dining area.
Well, that would be great, but that's down the line.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
But
Yeah.
here's the point, is, for example, let's assume you wanted the Little Art Gallery, wanted to do an event.
Right.
That it would include a DORA function. That would be perfect. Again, that's what we see in Franklin County. The library might want to do something.
My son went to school down at Capitol, and
There you go.
Bexley is a
Bexley's,
great thing. They
Yeah.
even have it during their farmers market, which is out on the street, and it's good.
I think we're only limited by the calendar and by our imaginations. I think we ought to be open to, again, looking at events, and again, they don't necessarily have to be big events. But let's assume for the sake of argument that the Little Art Gallery wanted to do an art auction. Wanted a permit, they wanted a DORA, we get some food out there, and they've got a great event.
Well, and so the library does Live at the Library Thursdays in June and July. So bring in a food truck and have live music on the portico. And this year that's been expanded in partnership with the city to be called the Canton Summer Series. So the DORA is being promoted as part of that. Helen Bird's involved. So that'll be every Thursday, June and
great.
July, 5:30 to 7.
It's perfect.
So, yeah, it's, I think it just brings people out and
It does.
down. Yeah.
They wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think your Bitzer idea is great with the food trucks and stuff there.
Well, again, that's something down the road.
Yeah.
But, again, if you look at the Columbus Franklin County scene, it's clear they have a broad variety of interesting things to do, of which the DORA is a component. Any other comments? Okay, we'll talk about it in a year.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
Moving on, finance and property. Stephanie.
Okay, you can kind of see the expenses and what totals to almost 7,250,000. Some is from the COVID relief and from the vans, and would you like to talk about that, especially before the 4 million and.
There are 4, and I do want to add one. It's listed on the second page as a 0 because we need to reallocate $20,000 from wages to services. So I do need authorization. But it would be Fund 650, Department 768. And we're just moving 20, not new money, just we're moving 20,000 from personnel down to contract services. So that would be the 5th. So we do have general fund. This is following up on our bands, our economic development bands that we're rolling over, and then that we're also adding the 2.5 million. So I have to gross all of those transactions up on the books. Even though we're not paying them off, we're still, in essence, paying them off and issuing new ones. So I need to kind of create those gross transactions on the books, and these appropriations will take care of that, along with the Law Enforcement Education Fund. In the past, I believe they had CPT funds, and it was always a reimbursement from prior year's training, and now they are advancing those funds to us for payroll hours. That's a first that we haven't seen before. And then COVID relief, that is a $3,600. All of the entities in the county or the state that decided they didn't want their allocation, they reallocated those to those of us who said, yes, we do want it. And so our additional amount was $3,600.
Okay. I need to put that on the
So
agenda.
do you need an
I need an
amendment?
amendment.
Oh, amendment for the
Yes,
20,000.
please, thank you.
The vote will move that legislation be amended.
Second.
Yes. I will second. Well, I moved, you seconded.
Yeah.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to street and alley. Have a motion and a second to, are we reading? No. So this is mine. So, Rob, could I have you explain to the new people what a performance bond is, or how, not performance bond, but what you do to take things out the bid? Because I think we're going to get into the season where we're going to get a lot of street and alley stuff. So for the new people, maybe just explain how that goes, and maybe even include some of the grant plans
Sure.
and things like that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What 5A is one of our grant sources is federal monies that we get through SCADS, Stark County Area Transportation Study. Basically, it's our Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, that handles the federal funds for Stark County. And with this one, it's all based on the federal fiscal year calendar. And if Stark County, if we have a little over $1 million that we don't spend in a fiscal year, they can take it from us. ODOT and the Fed will literally take it from us and say, okay, Stark County, if you can't handle it, we'll give it to Akron, we'll give it to Cleveland. So what we do to guard against that is, and I'm having to be chair of the committee last year and this year, is we always have what we call reservoir projects. Basically, shovel-ready is a fancy term, where they're just simple repaving projects that if other projects come in under budget, or if a community falls behind with their plan development, we have stuff ready to step in and not lose this money. So what happened with this one for Glenwood, I had an application in that wasn't funded initially, But when it looked like we had like 1.2 million we had to use or lose. So we were granted this grant, and I think I had reported that to council back in late January, I believe. But and what it does is it pays for 85% of the repaving of all of Glenwood Street from South Main, or Glenwood Street Southwest, I should say, from Glenwood, or from South Main to Whipple. And it pays 80%, so conservative estimate at the time, it's a little closer to reality with the times we're in. I had it at $618,750, and the grant will cover up to $495, or 80% of that. But literally, if we didn't spend it, we'd lose it. So we were right there, had it. So what this ordinance is for tonight is just to go out to bid like we would on any other project. Because we got the grant so late in the game, we did the ordinance either at the end of 21 or early this year, where we got all these over $50,000 projects out of the way, but we hadn't gotten this grant yet. So this is just coming back to you for that permission for us to go out to bid and award it during, following our normal protocols to award it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Anyone have any questions on how that process works or anything? Or specifically about this?
Sure. Rob, when would you anticipate this project start?
Starting, we have to award the project before the end of the fiscal year. So we will award the project, we'll encumber the funds in Columbus before the end of June 30th, basically. We have a water line project on Glenwood that we've already awarded. We've got to get that done first. They could be starting there in 2 to 3 weeks. I can hold the bids after, we can award it, but hold the notice to proceed for up to 60 days. I guess the short answer is, I would say late summer, we will get started on this. We've got to finish the Glenwood water line first and then get in there immediately after and repave it, but definitely this season.
So those who use Glenwood will reside and anticipate disrupted summer.
They will have a disruptive summer, but it will lead to, with the polymer asphalt, 10 years of smooth sailing.
In additional police weapons.
Especially westbound, down the hill.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
So that's 10 years it'll last?
On average, I think that's a safe bet. Yeah, maybe even more. Well, it depends on subsurface conditions, but I think 10 years is a good rule of thumb, especially with the more expensive polymer pavement that we're using because we have the grant to pay for it.
Thanks.
Polymer was Dominic Conte's.
Well, that is an award and appreciate that.
He loved it though.
Yeah.
I move that we put this on the agenda.
Wait a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So moving on to 5B. So this is the, this is the performance agreement for the McKinley Apple Grove project. Should answer.
Potential spam.
So again, let's just start from the beginning. Rob, can you explain how a performance agreement would work for this?
Yeah, absolutely. What this is Sanctuary Phase 5. And I think last week, tonight, the final third reading for Sanctuary Phase 5. Maybe we passed it already. But that was the preliminary plat. This piece is the performance guarantee, that now the contractor next will step in and build it. And that's a function of the construction cost estimate, which they gave us an estimate. I looked it over. I think it was like $691,000. So now they have to post a bond that if the developer was to become bankrupt for whatever reason, not complete the project, the bond is there for the city to step in and complete it because the roads will become ours. Obviously, we don't anticipate that being a problem with our developer in Phase 5 of a beautiful neighborhood, but that's still what our ordinance requires. And then roughly a year from now, is that bond will be reduced to just 10% of it, so $61,000. and that's in the form of maintenance. If something falls apart, section of curb breaks, a manhole collapses, we still have that for another year if they would not fix it themselves, where the city has the ability to cash in that bond, go fix it. And then 5C is the last component, which is the sidewalk bond. Separate from the roadway construction, that neighborhood, per our ordinance, has to have sidewalk on both sides of the road. So our rough estimate for the 2,000 feet of 5-foot wide sidewalk is $54,000. So then they post another bond for that. But that could be years from now, or maybe we'll chip away at it, depending how fast it develops. As each house is completed, the builder builds a sidewalk in front of that individual home. So it could take a while, or they seem to be selling quite quickly out there, so maybe not so long. But eventually, the developer will ask us, reduce the performance bond to the maintenance bond in 10%. And then he'll also ask us to release the maintenance and then ultimately release the sidewalk bond.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions about 5B or any how the performance bond work, anything like that?
Is this different? Last week, we had talked about someone getting a hold of the contractor and making the necessary changes on that. There was a hold.
That was in Monticello, Phase 8, in accepting the final plat. I think we've gone to just the maintenance bond there for the 10% amount. A punch list item was getting that gate in Monticello, the lockport. That's a couple $100 item based on hundreds of thousands of construction. But still, if they wouldn't, well, number one, if they wouldn't pass it, I doubt you tonight would pass the third reading. And secondly, we could cash in a bond if they never got us that lock. I mean, obviously, they're not gonna lose and get a bad grade with their bonding company
Did they
over a
get
$200 lock.
Did they get back to us?
Yeah.
They did?
We'll
Okay.
talk about that.
Okay.
It's on the next
Yeah,
agenda.
next
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
On that item, I would just like to read in the record an email from Chief Bacon to Stephanie. It was from Rob to Stephanie, but from Chief Bacon, has confirmed that the Knox box lock for the Monticello gate has indeed been ordered by the developer. And the chief did approve the developer's order with Knox. And so we're just following up with the developer to make sure that it's being delivered timely and installed. There could be potential, I'm going to say it affects everything.
Yeah.
Global supply, pandemic, where's it on back order, when will it come in, all kinds of issues.
Yep, and I could take
It
that a
is being
step.
followed up on.
I could take that a step further, Patrick. They also sent me their FedEx tracking number. The thing arrived today in Uniontown at 11:14 a.m. So I know it's for the next meeting, but
Yeah.
it's here. Not hanging on the street yet, but it's here.
Good, thanks.
Brown, are you good? I know.
All right. Well, that motion that we put this on the agenda.
Vote seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 5C. So, Rob, what's that?
Did Rob explain it?
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Oh.
yeah, but we didn't, still. So this is for the sidewalks that we just discussed. It's $54,255. Any questions on how that process works or this specific ordinance? And, move that we put this on the agenda.
Second.
Wait a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And any more new business?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned. Pause for 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Now call to order the special city council meeting of April 4th, 2022. It is 7:24 p.m. Opening prayer.
Heavenly Father, you promise to open doors of blessing and abundance for your people. We ask that you would work mightily in us today. Come upon us and cause us to have a productive meeting. Lead each one of us so that we can make fruitful contributions at this time. Enable us to think and strategize in ways that will achieve great results. Purify our thoughts and motives so that each one of us will enter this meeting desiring the good of others and the pleasure of your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member McLean.
Here.
Member Wyrick.
Here.
Member Waring.
Here.
Member Troy.
Here.
Member Revolt.
Here.
Member McLean.
Here.
And Member Orr.
Here.
7.
Okay. Recognition of the public at this time. Members of the public wishing to address City Council may do so. Each speaker will be granted 5 minutes. As a reminder, the rules are now posted on the screen to the audience's right. As this is a special council meeting, we ask that the topics discussed will be limited to those that fit on the agenda.
Chuck Osborne, 307 Fairview Street Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. First of all, I'd like to point out your agenda says this meeting is starting at 8 p.m. So any citizen who shows up here at 8 is probably going to miss the meeting. Does everybody see that? When I saw that, I thought, they're going to be at Jam because do you really think the committee of the whole is really going to last an hour? Typically, if you go on the agenda,
Immediately following.
the special council meeting will follow the committee of the whole meeting. So I don't know why you switch up in process. Secondly, I'd like to ask your indulgence, since you spoke at the committee of the whole about the DORA, I'd like to address that. Or is everybody going to jump up and scream?
Mr. Osborne, I would object because it is not an item on our regular council agenda or our special council meeting agenda. The DORA is not an item. There is no action to be taken,
I understand
and
that.
therefore you may.
It's been freshly discussed here. Anybody who's interested in this issue would have heard it, and it's timely to have.
We're going to stick to the rules.
We're going to stick to the rules.
Well, thank you.
Anyone else?
If I may. Respond. Yes, there was a version of the agenda originally published that had 8 p.m. on the top. That is because our grant software requires a timestamp to be in it, so I have to manually go in, look it up for immediately following committee time. However, the top page of the agenda packet, which Mr. Osborne is referencing, which is the legal notice for this meeting happening, does currently and always said immediately beginning at 7:50. So the very first page of the packet published to the website said immediately following committee time.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks. Moving on to old business. I have a motion and a second to read by title only ordinance 26-2022.
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
An ordinance amending Chapter 103 Official Standards of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton in order to adopt a new city seal.
Well, this is a third reading of this. We haven't had any discussion or no one's objected. We've been using the new seal for quite some time. It's just a matter of getting it cleaned up and off the books. So I make a motion that we pass this evening.
Revolt will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 6B. I have a motion and a second to read by title only ordinance 27-2022.
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben.
An ordinance repealing Chapter 701, General Licensing Provisions of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton.
Again, this is the third reading. We haven't had any discussions. It's about how to go and file the licensing and that nature of that stuff. So again, I think we should just go ahead and pass this tonight.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, that's a motion.
Revolt will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 6C. I have a motion and a second to read by title only, ordinance 28-2022.
Revolt will move.
Warren second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
An ordinance repealing Chapter 709, Commercial Amusements of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton.
Again, it's third reading. We haven't had any, no one's really objected to this. And we already passed the preceding one, so this one should be passed as well. Make a motion.
Revolt will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 6D. Can I have a motion and a second to read by title only, ordinance 29-2022?
So moved?
Warren second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
An ordinance amending Chapter 137, Department of Police of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton, specifically Section 137.04, Personnel, in order to increase the authorized number of police sergeants to 6.
This is our third reading, this ordinance allowing Chief Kemp to have six sergeants on staff instead of the 5 that in the ordinance. Wouldn't do that to you, Chief. But allowing the 6 sergeants then gives him more flexibility in scheduling. It's not adding total personnel staff, it is just reallocating the titles and the individuals. I make a motion that we pass the third reading of this and allow Chief Kemp to schedule it meeting.
Revolt will second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 6E. Can I have a motion and a second to read by title only, ordinance 30-2022?
Revolt will move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this is street and alley. We just talked, go ahead. Let me read it. Oh, sorry.
An ordinance accepting a record plat of Monticello Phase 8 located within the corporate limits of the City of North Canton.
Sorry, good. Okay, so we just talked about this before briefly. The lockbox is not there, but we have a way to move forward, correct, Brad?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So I will make a motion.
Revolt will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to business. Can I have a motion and a second to suspend Council Rule 24 to allow for consideration of the items appearing on the April 4th, 2022 Committee of the Whole agenda without a written committee report?
Revolt will move.
Warren second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can I have a motion and a second to read by title only, ordinance 36-2022?
Warren moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Ben?
An ordinance authorizing the appropriation of funds of the City of North Canton to be appropriated for current expenses during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022.
Okay. We talked about all these. There are no other objections or anything. Move to adopt.
Revolt will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring 3 readings?
Revolt moves.
Warren second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then finally, can I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 36-2022 under the suspension of the rules?
Revolt moves.
Warren second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion and a second to read by title only ordinance 37-2022?
So moved.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the City of North Canton to advertise and receive bids and enter into a contract for the repaving of Glenwood Street Southwest at a cost not to exceed $618,750 and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Okay, we discussed this in the committee of whole. Any further comments or questions?
Move to adopt?
Revolt seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion and a second to suspend the rule of council requiring 3 readings?
Revolt will move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, can I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 37-2022 under the suspension of the rules?
Revolt will move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 5B, can I have a motion and a second to read by title only ordinance 38-2022?
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of North Canton to enter into a performance agreement with McKinley Applegrove Limited for the construction of streets, stormwater management facilities, drainage improvements, and sewer improvements for the Sanctuary Phase 5 development.
Okay, and we just discussed this in the previous meeting. I move that we adopt.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5C, can I have a motion and a second to read by title only ordinance 39-2022?
Revolt will move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of North Canton to accept a sidewalk performance bond in the amount of $54,225 between the city and McKinley Applegrove Limited and accept the accompanying mortgage deed for city lot number 6952, thereby securing the bond for all necessary work required to complete sidewalks in the Sanctuary Phase 5 construction project.
Okay, and we discussed the sidewalk bond in the previous meeting. Are there any comments or questions? I move we adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Before we adjourn, any comments or questions? I do want to make a brief statement on, we have a public meeting on the 11th, and there are going to be some people that are not going to be here. So can I get a tally of who's going to be here in person on the 11th? Me?
95% yes.
All right, so we'll have, okay. We may need somebody to call in via Zoom if possible, but, okay, all right, so we're covered for that. Anything
Before you
further?
adjourn,
Sure.
I'd just like to say thank you to Chief Kemp and to Chief Bacon. Thursday evening, they provided us a tour of their facilities. It was an opportunity after 5 o'clock to see their operations and meet some of the personnel, and they took time out of their day to adjust their schedules for council to do that, and it was greatly appreciated. It was eye-opening for us. Thank you.
And David, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to echo the same thing. And although Chief Bacon isn't here, it was interesting that we were actually at the EMS building, or Station 2, I guess we should call it, when they had a call. And I thought it was terribly impressive that I think before we realized what was going on, they were going down the road. So very impressive. Thank you, Chief Kemp, and thanks to Chief Bacon as well.
Yeah, it did open our eyes quite a bit. I didn't realize, I always thought that was just a medic unit over there by the high school, and actually that's probably one of our main stations there and stuff of that nature, but it was very good. You run a very, very clean operation with tight quarters over there. But thanks again.
All right, thanks. Just wanted to say a final comment that if you haven't met Kevin, introduce yourselves and welcome. And that's it. I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned.